Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, where we look at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hello, and welcome back to Modern Musings. I'm your hostess, Cindy Murray, and I'm here today with my co-hosts, Amber Jones and Kristen Hessler.
Hey!
And today, as promised last week, we are talking about tarot. We've had previous discussions about oracle cards and other metaphysical pursuits, and we've even done a few tarot card readings for you. We haven't done one of those in a long time, but we do enjoy doing those from time to time. And I just wanted to kind of bring up the subject of tarot and talk a little bit more about it and about why we like it and how we read and why we read and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of misunderstandings about tarot. A lot of people think they're witchcraft or they have a negative connotation to them, that you're talking with spirits or using the devil or whatever, and actually tarot cards come from basic playing cards. They were inspired as a game. It was a parlor game that people played a long time ago, and eventually people started kind of using them for what we call cartomancy, which is, kind of fortune telling of sorts. I don't really look at it as a fortune telling type thing, but more as a insightful. I use it myself. I draw cards every day to read, and I use them to kind of better my understanding of myself. And I don't know, they're just interesting. The cards have a lot of symbology on them. Some of it's Christian and Jewish and other religions, and the symbolism in the cards kind of leads you to look at things a certain way so that you might see patterns in your own life or whatever of things that you need to address or to follow through on or whatever. And so that's kind of how I use the cards. What about you, Kristen? What got you started reading tarot cards, and how do you see them and how do you use them?
Well, I got them because they give you a look into possible outcomes for future. I was drawn into them because of fortune telling. But as I grew older, I realized that they are far more insightful for past, present, and future.
Yes.
But in an insightful way, not as like something that's going to happen to me and, that's uncontrollable kind of thing. It wasn't like, oh, this card happens and then boom, it's going to happen to you,
Yeah.
One of the things that I took away in my first, paid reading that I got from a professional was, this is me on my path at this very moment, but it could change with a blink of an eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Based on the choices and, decisions and actions that I take and make. And so, I had a reading given to me when I was like 18, 19, 20, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it really I kind of tried to memorize as much as I could. My biggest takeaway was that in my reading, he told me that there would be a person in legal, like a police officer or lawyer or a judge, that would be in my life, and he kind of saw it as like a future person, like a husband or someone that I would date or something like that. And at the time I was dating someone that would not be a police officer And so I was always like, oh, I'm going to marry a police officer for like 10 years. But really what it was I ended up having like a lot of legal problems looking back. And I was like, that's what it was. You know, he saw that I would have legal problems.
This person was in your life for a long time.
But it wasn't a person. It was just a theme.
Right.
You know, and it had nothing to do with the person that I was dating at the time. And it was really funny because had I like not taken that part so seriously, it's like, I wonder, you know, did that impact my relationship? Because I automatically knew like my relationship was over.
Right.
It's so weird. Like, you know, and obviously it was. I was only like 18 or something at the time. So it wasn't a forever relationship.
You know,
but still.
That's really interesting because sometimes I think telling your fortune or whatever does lead you to make choices that affect the outcome. I remember having my cards read at Scarborough Fair, the Renaissance, local Renaissance fair, many years ago. And I remember that she said something about a dark stranger would, I don't remember exactly what it was, would betray us or something. And it had something to do with my house and renovations on my house. And at the time, we were considering doing some renovations or something. And when we started taking bids on the house, there was a couple of different people that we had do bids. And I was afraid of the guy who had dark hair. I was really worried about him. And as it turns out, the guy that we did pick, who was not dark, but he was dark-hearted.
Yeah, dark on the inside.
Dark on the inside. And he wound up taking advantage of us. He took payment, never finished, or took at least partial payment. We lost, I think, about $20,000. He demolished my driveway and started the forms for creating a new garage addition and never poured the concrete or anything.
He just never came back.
He never came back. And with that, you know, I'm like, did I turn away the bid of one of the other contractors that we looked at because I had in my head dark person, you know, dark hair, dark skin, you know. There were there were three contractors, and one of them was a black man, and the other one was a more swarthy, but dark hair, dark eyes, maybe like Italian or something like that. And both of those I was afraid of because I thought they were the dark man. And, you know, I don't know. I didn't make the final choice of who to pick, but my husband kind of ultimately made that choice. And we picked, one of the guys had the high bid, one had the low bid, and we picked the one in the middle, you know, and he was the one that I didn't think was dark, quote unquote, you know, because he seemed like he had his act together and everything. And he wound up taking us for $20,000.
I know this has not much to do with tarot readings, but if a fortune was to be told, or a prophecy, right? I mean, technically that's like a prophecy.
Yeah.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
No matter what you do.
Right.
Maybe.
And by trying to avoid it, you are the cause of it.
Possibly. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. That's the way I look at it too sometimes. I don't know. That's kind of fatalistic.
I know.
view.
Yeah, I know.
Right. And then in that it means that you take away all free will. Mm-hmm. That free will has no effect. Mm-hmm. And
it does, but it doesn't.
I don't know.
I mean, you have free will to make choices, but maybe the choices that you make are still the predetermination.
Well, then it's not a choice.
Well, to you it is.
But is it? Because then if no matter what you choose, you would still have the same outcome. Then it's not really a choice. I don't know. That's
it's
Still a
like,
choice.
philosophical
It's
question.
just the outcome.
yeah, it's like the road not taken, right? Or
Yeah.
the two roads.
Yeah.
You're still going the same place, but you either choose the rough road to get there or you choose the easy road to get there.
Yeah.
But you're still ultimately ending up in the same place, which is your fate.
Right. But not everybody believes in fate. So,
Or which is your destination. How's that?
because like you said, you could change it at any moment by making other choices. You could go on a different path.
Yeah, you could completely turn around and go back the other way. Yeah.
Right.
But if you're going like in one direction and you have like two different roads to get there, but they all end up there, and you go on either one of those roads, you're going the same place. But if you turn left and completely go in the opposite direction, then you've changed.
Right. So that's why
your direction.
It's not necessarily as fatalistic if you can choose to go a different direction. If you can change the outcome by changing what you do, then you may not wind up in the same place.
Okay, let me pose this question to you. That's kind of similar to what we're talking about. Like you had 3 contractors, 3 roads to go down, and the end result was your house possibly getting messed over by a contractor.
Right.
What if no matter which contractor you chose was going to screw you out of $20,000 no matter what?
It could be, but do we know that that's what I'm saying? Do we know that that's going to be the outcome no matter what?
Well, no.
No.
It was just the path that you were on at that time. You were going to run into somebody that was going to screw you over.
Right. But you said that you could make a change.
Well, you could have.
You still make a choice,
and it puts you on a different path that
you could have chosen
that
not
leads to the same place.
Yeah,
the different path leads still to the same place.
But does it always lead to the same place? That's the question.
I mean, if like the end of the road is death, then it all ends to the same. It all leads to the same place. Like the end of your road is death. So yes, it all leads to the same place, no matter what direction.
We're talking about
But we're talking about your life path, and that is the life path. Ultimately,
I'm not talking about my life path.
I'm like, we were just saying like a couple episodes back that we were not nihilists,
right?
Well, this episode we're nihilists.
We are.
I am not a nihilist. There is meaning to everything. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't believe that we necessarily end up in the same place every time. You're talking about life choices. I'm not talking about life choices or the end of life, death. We all wind up in death. I'm talking about the waypoints in between. Do we cause and effect the things that happen to us? I mean, we do, obviously. We cause and effect. But just because the tarot card says a dark man is going to take advantage of me, does it necessarily mean that is the dark man? And if I make a different choice, does it mean I'm still going to be taken advantage of? It doesn't. I don't think it necessarily is. I think that you can't. Now, I think that in my case, I did act out of fear of that. But if I had not known that, would I have made that choice? Like Kristen.
Yeah, maybe not.
At that point, Kristen, with her boyfriend, she got it in her head that she was going to marry a cop. So she automatically
had to toe out the door. Yeah.
Really. And would you have done that if you had not had that tarot reading? And so that's why I say, because you can always make a different choice. And it still doesn't mean that you're still going to wind up in the same place. It really doesn't. Now, in your case, it did, because yours wasn't about marrying a cop. It was about getting in trouble.
Yeah. It was just interpreted differently.
Right.
Yeah.
But in my case, if I had not known that, I would have just kind of looked at the bids. I don't know which one I would have chosen. I might have chosen the more expensive one, and because I might not have been afraid of him being the dark man that was going to rip me off, and so, and he might not have ripped me off. There's no reason to think he would have ripped me off.
Right. And I think that's where letting tarot cards just be a means of fortune telling is dangerous.
It is.
It's dangerous because then you're allowing it to make choices for you that you're not using your own personal insight and
your best judgment
to make choices.
And that's where I prefer to use my cards. Like I say, I draw a card every day, a card for the day. I draw also an oracle card every day, and I use them as insightful guidance. So if I draw the Two of Pentacles, that's the one where he's balancing the two coins, and it inside of an infinity symbol. He's like juggling them, and it often means if you use the common interpretations of that card, it's a choice, or you're juggling things in your life. And I think I can apply that to many different aspects of my life. We're all at any given point in time juggling something. We're all facing a choice between something all the time. And so I can apply that principle to my life and help me make the good choice, because the tarot cards and their descriptions don't tell you this is what this card means. They really say it could be this, it could be that. And it gives suggestions of themes, overarching themes. And like I said, the Two of Pentacles, the overarching theme is that it is, balancing or juggling things, choices, decisions. And so that could apply to a lot of different things. Now, if somebody reads it to me and says, oh, this is in your marriage section, so you have to make a choice about your marriage, and they give more specifics about that, like the guy telling you that this guy was in your life, then you're going to read more into that, and then you're going to start looking at your marriage going, does this mean I need to get a divorce, or think about getting a divorce, or think about getting married, or whatever, So I don't like to look at it that way. I like to look at it more like, oh, I'm having to make a choice about something. So what in my life am I struggling with right now? Oh, it's this choice of, what nursing home I'm putting my mom in. And then using that, it gives me the ability to make those choices myself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how I prefer to use those.
Yeah, definitely I would not suggest asking direct questions like, should I get married or whatever, right. Like, maybe ask more of like the feelings around the questions, like, what are my feelings about getting married?
Well, I don't think it's even asking what are my feelings. I think you should know what your feelings are. But
okay,
maybe
so what are the feelings?
What should I pay attention to in this moment? I'm thinking about getting married. What do I need to know before I make this choice?
That's usually what I ask. What do I need to know?
That's what I ask most often. What do I need to know? What do I need to think
aware
about?
Of?
What are you, the cards, trying to tell me? And that's kind of what I don't usually ask, what do I need you to tell me in regards to a specific thing. I do it in a more generic for the day kind of way. So now I do also do. Like in January this year, I did a tarot spread for the new year. And I asked about things for the new year. And those were, what can I take away? What did I learn from last year? What are my takeaways from last year? What is my overarching theme, or what is my goal for the new year? And those were not, they were specific, but they weren't specific. They don't say, oh, your goal for the new year is to get married. It's more like, I don't know how to explain it.
You'll get a card that's focused on healthy relationships.
Yes. And so that is your takeaway, is that you're going to be working on your relationships.
You read into it what you truly desire.
Right. What you need out
your
of it.
intuition tells you what it sees.
So mine, the cards that I drew, the one that talks about what my aspirations were for the new year, that one, like I drew the death card. And so it's talking about endings and change and personal transformation. I read into that what that means in terms of my life. It doesn't necessarily mean specifically certain things are changing. I read into it from my own intuition what is changing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, my yearly read that I did in January was very similar. It was all about change and taking that next step.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when we did the podcast over what is your biggest fear, my biggest fear was taking that next step, and I'm taking it. It's just it wasn't like it was just and Kristen joked when I did the reading. She was like, "We've been telling you this whole time, and now you're going to take a piece of paper." But it really wasn't even that. Like, I was on the I was like on the edge.
Yeah.
I was on the ledge. And so the tarot card reading didn't necessarily make me take the next step. It was just like
told you what you already knew.
Yeah, it told me what I already knew. It was like a reiteration of, hey, you're about to take this next step.
Yeah.
Don't blow it. You're going to take this next step. And like every card that I pulled was like, you're taking this next step. You're going to do it. It's going to happen. Don't mess up. Blah, 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 blah. It was just like it's the same like, card over and over.
And it really is in your own intuition. It's taking your own intuition and enhancing it. It's, when as you're reading it, you intuitively know what it's talking about. It says very generic things, but you are the one who uses your intuition to read into it what it means. Like the death card and the change and things that come with that. That could be anything to anyone. Mm-hmm. But for me, it happened to be the change of my life changing after my husband passed away. And that's a huge change for me, a huge transformation for me in my life. And I read that to be that. But if Kristen had had that card, it would have meant something completely different for her. Mm-hmm. Yes. So the card itself doesn't tell you this specific thing. It just tells you in generalities, like the death card means endings and change and personal transformation. That's what it means, but you read into it all of the other things that go with it.
Definitely.
So that's where I say I think it's less of a fortune telling kind of thing and more of a intuitive guide. It kind of lets you see the knowledge that you already have. You have all that information in you, but sometimes you don't pull it all out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Or line them up side by side.
Right, or line it up side by side where you can really look at it. Yeah.
So, just so you know, we're not doing the devil's work.
No, absolutely not.
We are looking at the intuitive signs.
Yeah, we're looking at ourselves.
I like that.
I think of it as looking inside at myself and knowing what
it's really not any different than looking at a painting at the museum
and reading something into it,
and how it makes you feel.
Or reading something in your without the cards, reading something like the signs in, say, just like the signs around you.
Right.
And I know we talked about this when we did our spirit guide episode, but just like it's pretty much the same thing as reading the signs around you, except, in paper form.
Yeah. Or listening to the advice of your friends. Yeah. And like in your case, your friends have been telling you the same thing for years, and it was there. It's in your head. It's in your heart. It's there at the back of your mind. But you're just, it's the niggle. We've talked about the niggle before.
Yeah.
And people put those niggles in your brain. Those niggles are already there. But you're trying to ignore them. And then you read the card and it tickles that niggle again. And it brings that thought back to the front that says,
but this time you thought it on your own versus someone telling it to you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's also the same way if you're reading a book about a different point of view and allowing yourself to really think the thought and make your own decision on that point of view. Yeah. So that's really not much different than that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Exactly. So what kind of, I've mentioned that I do a card reading every day, one of the oracle card and one of my tarot. And that's kind of this is what I need to think about for today. And I've done special readings for special occasions, like one for the new year or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I like to go get, have other people give a reading for me or whatever that, just on occasion, just for fun or whatever. What kinds of readings do you like to use?
Oh, I like those. I like the complicated ones.
You do. You like the really long ones.
I like to, when I sit down and read tarot, like I don't necessarily do it every day, even though it's one of my goals this year to kind of start doing it more. But when I sit down and do it, it's just like a big energy thing. I put all of my energy into it, and I do elaborate readings either for myself or for other people. Like those are my favorite types of readings.
You've done some of those for me before.
Yeah, the tarot table, the cross reading,
the Celtic cross.
Yeah, the Celtic cross.
That one's a hard one for a lot of people.
Then that's my absolute favorite. Like I've been doing the Celtic cross reading since I was in 6th grade.
Oh wow!
So I've been practicing at it for that long. Like there are years when I don't do it, but yeah, it was like the very first one I learned how to do.
Wow.
And I stuck with it ever since. With my very first tarot deck, that's the one that I like to use it with. My very first, my Cornali tarot deck.
Okay. And obviously we've done the Maid, Mother, and Crone 3-card read.
That's the one that I
kind of developed.
Yeah. I've been practicing that one a lot because I feel like that one says, like what's coming, what you need to nurture, and what you're going to learn from it. And I feel like that kind of still gives me a little bit of like, ooh, what's coming? Like, give me a little bit of future. Tell me what, I'm looking out for. And it's when I pull a card, it's always like, well, yeah, I know that. Like, I'll pull a card that says negative self-talk, and I'm like, well, what kind of negative self-talk cereal are we going to have this week? Like, I already know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, for me, I've been really enjoying practicing that one, and I used to do a past, present, future.
Yes.
Like 3-card, and then I would draw my oracle card. But now I started drawing the oracle card first to get the underlying tone or message, and then I do that MMC. I call it the MMC layout. It's ours, and I've been doing that for like a year now. since we did our first one together on
Yeah.
a podcast
I enjoy
episode.
doing that one when we do
Yeah.
that one together. Yeah. We haven't done one in a while.
I
We
know.
might
I
need
was
to
thinking
do one.
about that too. I was like, I think we haven't done one in like 6 months or something.
Ugh, yeah.
But maybe we'll do one again soon. But that's been fun. I used to do as my annual layout, I would do a January through December.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Or wherever I did it. Like, maybe in May,
March
I
to
would
March,
go,
or
I would just do
we've
like
done
a
that
1
one.
year.
Yeah,
And
I love doing that one
that
too.
one really did kind of fall into that category of fortune telling, because it was like, this is going to happen in March, and this is going to happen in
Right.
April and May, and I have lots of spirals with like each page is 1 month, and
Yeah,
it's
I need
like
to
the
go
whole
back and look at one of
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, but like sometimes it's like I mean, I know it's not like fortune telling, but like sometimes it's true. It's like your life path, and it's coming like the year. Because I remember that 1 year that I did it like kind of predicted my divorce.
Yeah.
It was just like in the back of my mind, I knew it was coming, and so
Yeah.
did the cards.
Yeah.
It was just like how they laid out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the one that you did for me. That's what I was saying. That was the one that you did for me, and I think it was like a March to February one. And I remember several of the things coming, happening just as we described them, and it was kind of, I mean, I could have read that into many different things, but it was like, oh yeah, okay, that's what that was, okay. But yeah, I do like that one too.
This year, you found one from Biddy Tarot on her blog.
Yes.
And so I was like,
I
okay,
talk
I'll
about
try
her a
that
lot,
one
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I really liked that one because it wasn't like a month
Month
by
to
month
month,
by
yeah.
month. It was kind of like a Celtic cross by giving you like your past.
Oh, very much was, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had like what you're looking forward to, what's going to stand in your way, and what those obstacles are, what
what your priorities are for the
like
year.
there's like external obstacles and personal in mine. I felt like I kind of got a little taste of all of that, and so I really enjoyed that layout. I'll probably keep that one and do that one again next year because I liked that it felt a lot more encompassing, and it was a lot more guided than just going January, February, March, April, May.
Right.
Because in those, it almost feels like each card is like its own individual card.
And they're not interconnected.
Right. They are not connected. And so you don't get the full picture if you're not putting the cards together, because when you think about it, like when something happens in your life, that domino effect, it impacts other places in your life. And maybe something happens, but it doesn't have the effect until months later, or maybe something else happens as a result of something else. And if you're not reading the cards collectively like that, you're missing out on the bigger picture.
Right.
And so I like her layout because it really guided you on what to look for when things were connected.
Right.
Or how to connect those things. And that's one of the things I've been really practicing too in this past year, because of the MMC card layout. I've been able to take this first card and the last card and the middle card and just say like, okay, they go together. It's not three different things.
Right.
They are all together. And so you really don't get the full picture until you've looked at all three cards.
Right.
And made your decision on which aspects of each card.
And that's one of the things that Biddy Tarot teaches in her card reading, is that all of the cards are connected. You don't read the cards individually, one after the other. You read them collectively. You read them individually, but you also they're all connected. So, and I do like that. We last fall we took a class.
Tarot
we
class.
took an intuitive tarot class, and Biddy Tarot also kind of teaches an intuitive method, because what she teaches is that you learn the keywords that go with, and you can often find the keywords or the key themes, as the case may be, on the face of the cards. If you, particularly the Rider-Waite deck, it has a lot of symbolism in the cards, and so you read the symbolism of the cards, and that's where you get the intuitive answers. And she teaches you to associate keywords with that symbolism, so that you remember that each card means these kind of things, and then you can go from there. That's an interesting take on it. Or going purely from the intuitive, just looking at the face of the card and going, well, this is what I see on this card, so this is what it means. Mm-hmm. And it's a little more challenging. It's I still tend to look up the meanings of some of the cards. Most of them I'm getting where I know them pretty well, but there's still a few where I have to remember, what did that mean? I forget. And it's easier with the Rider-Waite deck than it is with some of the more specialized decks, because the specialty decks, you might not intuitively know what that card means just by looking at the picture or whatever.
Right.
And I'm thinking specifically, Kristen, of like your Star Trek deck. Like, if you don't understand the character, then it makes it a little different. Yeah,
I would say learn on the Rider-Waite or a similar deck, and then venture out into the fun decks, because the one I'm currently using is a Meryl Streep tarot deck, and it has like all of her movies, so you would have to like kind of understand her movies, and understand the card at the same time to be able to understand it and look at it.
That's exactly the way the Star Trek deck works. Is it has a bunch of characters from the show, and doesn't have the symbolism that the Rider-Waite has.
Right.
So when you look at the card,
you have to remember
what the traditional Rider-Waite meanings are, but also take into consideration that in this particular deck, you're like, I could just look at it Rider-Waite face value and just ignore the fact that it's a Star Trek deck. But then that kind of takes out the whole fun of the Star Trek deck, because the Star Trek deck has specific story plot lines that allude to why that particular character is that card.
Yeah.
So, when I read from that book, I want to read the little booklet that comes with it, because, I don't know all of the episodes like by heart, So I'll read the little booklet and be like, oh, yeah, okay. I was actually reading one to Mom, and she was like, I remember that episode, And you have to understand that character. Like, one of them is Wesley Crusher, and if you don't know who Wesley Crusher is on Star Trek, then you kind of lose some of the meaning of that particular reason why they selected him for that card. But if you know the Rider-Waite deck, and you already have like the cards memorized without the symbolism, then you're okay.
Yeah.
So it definitely, like your Meryl Streep one, I would be lost because I've only seen like a handful of her movies. So a lot of the symbolism that it alludes to on there, it would be lost on me.
Right. Well, if you, I was looking at it, and then, looking at it doesn't have all of the symbolism of the Rider-Waite deck, but it is that particular deck is very similar.
Yeah, I noticed that the artwork was very similar.
Lots of good details.
Whereas my Golden Girls tarot deck, not similar at all.
Or
my zombie
deck.
one. Oh,
your
my zombie.
deck is,
but the zombie one is meant to be read a completely different way and interpreted a different way. But then again, the zombie deck is more like a game.
Okay.
It's not really like meant for you to do intuitive tarot with, because all of the readings are zombie related.
Right.
I mean, you could still interpret them to be regular related, like real life related, but all of them, like all of the outcomes, are going to be zombie related, because it is the zombie deck.
So you really have to use like some deep diving with your intuition to pull up the symbolism for that.
So, I mean, I wouldn't use that deck to do a serious read for somebody.
Right.
Now, I could use the Merrill deck, and of course my Cornali, which is based off the Rider-Waite deck, which has pretty much the same symbolism. That is the one that I use if I'm going to read for somebody else. Of course, I know I practice on y'all with my other decks. What was the newest one that I got? Was it like the Cthulhu deck or something like that?
Yeah.
That one is very interesting.
Yeah. Well, and then a lot of people like to use the Lenormand deck. And I know, like one of the instructors when we took the intuitive class on the cruise last fall, he specializes in the Lenormand deck, and that one's like a whole nother set of ideologies.
The picture symbolism is different. Yeah,
very different. And there was another one. What was that one? She was the girl that partnered up with me on the cruise when we were practicing reading for each other, and she picked up another.
The light, was it a light tarot deck?
Yeah, I think it was something of light. I don't remember exactly what it was, and the symbolism in it was very different. It was very challenging for me to read it and say, oh, that's what that card is, because it didn't have the traditional numbers and card names on them. And so I had to look at it, and then it was like, oh, I guess that's what that is. It was like, I guess that's what that card is. But those were a little bit harder to read for me. But I loved the artwork on them. They were really cool. I think, though, for the most part, I prefer the Rider-Waite deck just because I'm familiar with the symbolism on the cards and the meanings behind those cards. That's the one I've been reading for the last, 3 or 4 years that I've been actually reading cards. So, that's what I like to do.
Was that deck called the Light Seers Tarot?
Oh, maybe so. I think so. I think that was it. Yeah. Yeah, it was really pretty. I was drawn to it by its name.
Very beautiful artwork.
Yeah, and I was drawn to it by the name because last year my word of the year was light, and she actually he had it there for sale while we were doing the class, and she jumped up and nabbed it before I got to, and I kind of thought I might go buy that one, but I'm still trying to learn the cards and the keywords and the symbols that go with it. So I may wait.
My everyday deck is my Rider-Waite, my original first deck of cards. I'm so glad that was the first deck that I ever bought.
Me too. Me too.
I do have a few other decks, and I always go back to that one. And I was like, how can I get myself to use my other decks more frequently? And I decided to put one Oracle deck and one Tarot deck in a bag in my car. That way I'd always have them with me no matter where. And then I picked ones that I wouldn't mind not having access to as often. And then I can go back and swap them out if I get tired of one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of my least favorite decks, but I still love, it's a love-hate. I bought it because I love the artwork on it, but it's one of the ones that has like no symbolism whatsoever on it. It has really cool artwork though.
Well, and that's, I feel the opposite about my Rider-Waite. I hate the artwork on it.
Oh, and I love the artwork.
Because it's so, I don't know, but but the symbolism on it is so elaborate that it's helpful. So
yeah, I like the original. It's like wood carving, kind of like, what do you call that? Where you like
wood
blocks, yeah. To make impressions or whatever, screen prints or whatever, mono prints. That's what it's called.
Monoprint.
Yes, I like that style though. So I've always thought that was kind of neat style of artwork, and it's kind of like one of the original tarot decks.
Right.
So of this time,
right?
This kind of new age of cartomancy.
Right.
So I feel like it is like the forerunner of all tarot cards.
Yeah, it's by far probably the most common one that people use, and because it's in the public domain, the artwork is in the public domain. There's lots of different companies who make those cards, who publish those cards. So you'll see lots and lots of those.
Or variations
on them. Like
Biddy Tarot.
Yeah. Biddy Tarot has a version of it that's kind of all in her purple colors.
It's kind of like modern music colors.
It really is. And she used very similar artwork, but it's very simplified. So, and she's had a couple of different decks that I liked, but they have more or less detail in them. I really like the detail that's included in that Rider-Waite deck, because there's so many little details. I just don't like the way it's drawn. That art style is not my favorite.
Yeah.
I guess.
What's your favorite one, Amber?
My favorite deck? Oh.
Besides your original one. You can't pick that one.
Oh. Oh, gosh. I have so many. My absolute favorite deck that I love just looking at, even though I don't read a lot from it, is my Jane Austen deck.
Oh.
My Jane Austen literary deck. And then probably like my second favorite would be my Golden Girls deck.
And those are both tarot, not
tarot,
oracle,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
My favorite oracle would be my Women in Literature oracle.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That
I
one,
was like, is Jane Austen one the Women in Literature? No.
No,
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have a lot of oracle decks. I have maybe 3. I just bought a new one. It's the Writer's Oracle deck.
Ooh.
But yeah, I think like I just have like 3, maybe 4 decks now of oracle decks.
I only have 2, so well, yeah.
Oh, it's like books. It's a collection for me.
You have 2 oracle decks?
I have 2 oracle decks. Yes,
I did
I have
buy I did buy Jason a tarot deck, the Nightmare Before Christmas one.
Yeah, what did he think of that?
He loved it, but he looked at it, he's like, I have no clue how to use this. And I'm like, that's why you read a book and learn.
Yeah, I have the Work Your Light Oracle, which is the first one I bought. And then I bought the Starseed Oracle. It's created by the same Rebecca Campbell.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like both of those because I like the artwork on those. They called to me. So I may have to go buy another one of hers. I don't know.
That'd be cool if she had a tarot deck.
Yeah, I don't think she does. I think hers are just oracle cards, though. But yeah, that would be a cool artwork if it was that artwork on a tarot deck. Would be very cool. So I'm curious if we always say this at the end. I'm curious to know if any of our listeners read tarot cards, or what are your feelings about tarot cards? Before I started reading tarot cards, I kind of had that. I don't know. This might be kind of evil, kind of. Because oftentimes the church teaches that these things, like. People take that quote, suffer not the witch to live. They take it out of context, but they use that phrase to dismiss or to dissuade people from using, tarot cards or oracle cards or runes or anything like that, and I think that's taken out of context, and I don't think that it does any harm. Like I said, at one point in time, I was worried that it might, but as I researched and studied my Bible more and researched the tarot cards and how they came to be and how they're used, I don't have any qualms about using them. And if anyone tries to, talks to me about them being from the devil or being evil or anything like that, or that we're talking to spirits when we use them, we're not using a Ouija board trying to summon the spirits here. We're just using the cards to read messages in our own mind, things that our brains are already thinking. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. I'd like to know if anybody else out there has other points of view. What are your concerns? What are your beliefs about cards? Do you have favorite decks? Do you have any favorite decks that are different from the ones that we mentioned? Because, tarot decks are fun to look at. So, it might be fun to hear about some different kinds of decks. So, what about you girls? Do you have any questions for our listeners? No? Okay.
No.
So, next week, our topic coming up is greatest recipe fails. And, that could be interesting. I think we've talked about a few of those.
I had a really good one on the first. I can't wait to share about.
So, we'll talk about some of those and move on and have some interesting recipe fails, and then we'll have some more episodes coming up soon. I think we have one about how to do a good job interview is coming up in future weeks, and I hope you'll come back and join us for that. I'd like to give a word of thanks for our creative audio tech for our theme music, and to Cake Mix Studios for our recording equipment. And we want to thank our loyal listeners for coming back episode after episode. And please get over on MMC Chat, our Facebook chat group, and let us know what you think. We'd like to hear from you. And that's all. We'll be back next week.
That's all, folks.
Bye.
Bye.